Have you ever wished your child came with a user's guide? Have you ever wondered how to motivate them to do their best? I'm sure we're all hoping to raise healthy, happy, well-adjusted children. But it can seem like an overwhelming challenge for parents today. The changing family structure, work pressures, technology and social influences are among a host of other problems that are leaving parents stressed out and worried about the future of their children. Is it possible, among all the turmoil that happens around us, to have a truly happy family? And if it was, would you like to know the secrets of a happy family? A family that enjoyed spending time together and where there was love, trust and respect. Well, join me, Gary Kent, as we meet with a world-renowned doctor who has uncovered important research on this topic. His information may just change your life and the life of your family. It has been said that families are the glue that holds society together. Being part of a family gives us our sense of identity and worth and helps to shape us into the person we are destined to become. Knowing that someone loves us and always has our back, whether we are wildly successful or struggling just to put one foot in front of the other, being loved unconditionally is one of the most desirable benefits of being part of a family. But our world is changing very fast. The evening time that used to be spent conversing with mum and dad at the table about the day's events is now spent largely in front of the television. At least 50% of families are breaking up, and even if a family stays together or forms a blended family in a new relationship, many of them are disconnected, spending more time on their devices and interacting on social media than they do with the people that live right beside them. So, what are the secrets of having a happy family? Well, join me as we discuss families with Dr. Neil Nedley, a medical doctor who has uncovered some fascinating research that shows the lifestyle and habits of happy families. Dr. Nedley, welcome to our program today. What does your research show about happy families?
Well, a happy family has to start out with a happy marriage. And the husband-wife relationship, if it's trusting, if it's loving, if there are definite, positives and strengths are combined in regards to roles and functions, that is the setup for a very happy family. And then we can talk about the studies in regards to good relationships with children and how important that is as well.
How important are families to society?
Families to society are really the basis of a successful, productive society. If we have very happy, productive, functional families, we are going to have great societies. And this is not only based on research, but many great individuals over time have recognized this. I mean, Supreme Court justices and presidents and others have talked about, we kind of ignore family in regards to politics and those sorts of things. But it is a crucial element. And if we're going to have successful government, even the foundation of our government is happy, functional families.
How important are happy families to children?
Happy families are crucial for children's intellectual and emotional development. And it is when there's trust in the home, when there's safety in the home, when the children know that meals are going to be served on time, that they're going to be taken care of, that they don't have to worry about where their next meal is going to come from, or if they're going to have good authoritative parents when they wake up and live in a structured environment. These are all crucial for the developing children's mind. And it turns out it's not so much the camaraderie. Camaraderie is important, but it turns out it's a loving, authoritative parent-child relationship that works the best. And so, yes, we want to play with our kids. We want to have that nice, trusting, pleasant environment where we can get down and be lateral with our kids. But sometimes there's overemphasis on that and not enough emphasis on what authoritative, loving parents look like. And that means that there is role distinctions, there is authority, there is family government, and that produces great function. There is great research showing that happy families are very connected to physical and emotional well-being of children, not only during their childhood, but actually way later into their adulthood. There was a study, for instance, done by Harvard. It's often quoted. It's called the Harvard Mastery of Stress Study. And it actually just looked at a few simple questions. This was questioning adults now about their childhood. But they found out that adults that have a good relationship with both their father and mother, by the time they're 50 years of age, 75% of them will have no significant illnesses at all. So they'll have lived a very happy, healthy life, both emotionally and physically. Now, there is 1 in 4 that are still going to have issues, even though they do have a good relationship with mom and dad. But if they have a good relationship with just one of them, 50% chance you can flip a coin that they're going to have a serious illness, either a serious mental illness or a serious physical illness by age 50. And if they now don't have a good relationship with either mom or dad, it's now 90% chance physical or emotional illness, significant, by age 50. So you can see 25, 50, and 90 just on the basis of how good of a relationship you have had with your mom and dad. And so that, of course, goes both ways. We want moms and dads to foster those good relationships. But it's also very important for children to recognize that these are my parents. They love me. I need to have trust that they're recommending that I do things that are actually best for me, and their accountability is actually for my own good. If they develop that trust relationship, there's going to be a bond that forms there, and it's going to help them physically and mentally, really, for the rest of their life.
What can fathers do to get more involved with their children?
Well, it's extremely important for fathers to be involved in their children. In other words, we want to know what they're taking in school, how well they're doing in school, what their strengths and weaknesses are, how we can guide them forward in regards to those weaknesses in a loving but yet accountable way. But one of the most primary things that fathers can do to be involved in their children is to be involved with a loving spouse that will help give them access and good access to those children. It turns out if you're not getting along with the mother of those children, chances are you're not really involved to the extent that you should be in those children. And if mother doesn't trust father, mother's going to try to limit access for you. Mother doesn't often recognize the problems of that because she's thinking, this guy's not trustworthy. I don't want him to be influencing our kids. But when there's no loving, authoritative father in the home, there's lots of bad things that happen that we just talked about. You know, much more likely to go to jail, much more likely to have problems, much more likely to become unemployed, much more likely to not have a successful job, all of those things. So when we think we're protecting our children by keeping them away from their fathers, we're actually not, unless the father truly is a bad man. If he's a criminal, if he's abusive, those type of things, yes, we need to protect that. But then we may need to find someone else that could take that loving, authoritative father role. And so it's important for fathers to have the access that they need to make their children successful. And sometimes motherhood is, of course, just as important. I don't want to mention that, that it's somehow inferior. No, motherhood, we can't say enough importance in regards to this loving mother as well. But often we think that's enough. If they've got a loving mother, they don't need these men in their life. Not true. The research is very clear that they need a good, loving, authoritative father figure in their life in order to come out balanced, emotionally stable, and able to handle tough situations. Well, I can tell you, as far as loving, authoritative, two biological parent homes that are raised from 0 to 18, that's the ideal, functional homes, it's now down to about 20% in the Western society. So that means only 20% of our daughters and sons are being raised with the full advantage of a great family. And that means there's a lot of dysfunctional homes and hurting homes out there. And that takes up the other 80%. And what we want to recognize too, some people might have gotten discouraged over the fact that if you don't have a good relationship with your mother and father, 90% chance you're going to have a serious disease by age 50. That's true. But we might talk about the reverse end. There's 10% that still didn't have disease. What about those 10%? Those 10% actually had good replacement figures that were trusting in their life. They were able to overcome the obstacles of a dysfunctional family by paying attention to their own physical health, their own emotional health and well-being, and making sure they have the right trusting mentors involved that can help develop them into very successful people. And so if you don't have a good mom or dad, or if your husband and the father of your children is in jail somewhere and can't be available at all, it's important. This is where even the importance of church comes in. When we have a loving, authoritative pastor or a youth pastor or someone in the Sunday school or whatever that can help mentor these kids in the right direction, good teachers, good educators that are more than just doing their job as far as educating, but actually providing the good empathy and warmth. That sort of thing can help the other 80% to be able to mitigate against all these increased risks they're under by not having a good two-parent home.
Dr. Nedley, do you have any advice for us regarding resolving conflict in families?
I think it's very important to resolve conflicts in families that we look at the mental health of the father and the mother. Very often, problems in a home result from mental health issues in regards to one or both of the parents. And this is why in our program, of course, we're dealing with families, but our programs are centered primarily on depression and anxiety recovery. And the parents who come to our program say, this is the best marriage enrichment program I've ever been through. We're not really addressing the marriage so much. Yes, we're addressing some of the aspects of the marriage, but we're doing things to get them biochemically and also thinking-wise to have a balanced mind. And once you have a balanced mind, it's a whole lot easier to work out your differences. And actually, it becomes far more simple than we might think. Another aspect of resolving conflicts in the home is mom and dad have to develop their ability to manage their emotions and self-control. Lack of self-control causes problems in the family, particularly when it's mom or dad. And if we're having problems with self-control of our kids, we need to recognize that often that starts from above. And how can we be managing the lack of self-control of our kids when we don't have it ourselves? And so this is why emotional wellness, ability to manage our emotions, improving the frontal lobe where we can have more empathy for our children, and then recognizing the vital aspect that parenthood will bring to our children's success for life. That means it is well worth resolving any conflicts for the benefit of our own children. And of course, it'll benefit our own lives. When we have good relationships with our spouse and with our kids, I mean, that's something that's going to pay dividends a millionfold as time goes on. And so do what it takes. Don't be self-centered and say, I'm just pulling out of here because I want to do this and that for me, and they're getting into the way of my happiness. You need to recognize that short-term happiness, and that is long-term problems. You think you're going to be better off? You're not going to be better off. It's better to resolve those conflicts and do what it takes to get your own brain and the brain of your spouse functioning optimally.
What can a dysfunctional family do to become a functional family?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, what is a dysfunctional family? A dysfunctional family, there's a lot of signs of it, but that's when meals are not served on time. That's when there's not, food or transportation or clothing issues, and schedules are all over the map. It's kind of everyone for themselves in the home. That's a sign of a dysfunctional family. And kids need structure. And if they're not getting regular structure, their schedules are going to actually adversely affect their own brain. Also, who's in charge in the household? Are the kids actually the ones in charge? That is a sign of a dysfunctional family. And yes, they're going to try to exert themselves to be in charge. They think they're on a lateral level of their parents, but they need to learn in loving ways that they're not, that their parents are trustworthy, but yet the parents are the ones in charge of the household. And don't let the kids rule, per se. We can have them involved in family government. We can have them involved in even deciding what their punishments might be. This doesn't mean we become violent in the household and have to do spankings and things like that. There's 100 other ways that we can discipline kids besides that sort of thing. But we need to actually decide, all right, when these rules are broken, how is this going to be dealt with and all of that? And what I've noticed is my own kids sometimes come up with punishments that are far more worse than what I would have come up with. And I have to try to soften it up because on the front end, they want to have some accountability too. So when we involve our kids in family government, but the parents are still the ultimate authority in the home, that is a sign of a functional family. And outbursts of temper, tantrums, all of those things get a whole lot better. There might be at first when we exert our authority if we haven't been exerting it the right way before, but it'll be well worth lasting through that and still making sure that the parents are in charge of the household. So if you notice that your family is dysfunctional, don't give up. Dysfunctional families can become functional families. And by the way, functional families can become dysfunctional families too. We have to, if we've got a functional family, it takes some work to maintain that. And particularly the way that functional families become dysfunctional is when one of the parents starts getting addicted to something. That's going to produce a dysfunctional family. But what can happen if you have a dysfunctional family? How can you get it functional again? That's when you need to have a family council meeting and say, you know what? We have a dysfunctional family. What can we do to get this functional again? What can we do to have enough proper planning to have meals be a family event and we're eating together and it's being served on time? What can we do as a group to come together and have this happen? What can we do to make sure the transportation to school is on time? What can we do to make sure that we're including the spiritual part in our life and we're having some meaning and purpose in our household? And then if one of the parents does have an addiction, let's address that. What can we do to have you overcome this addiction that is inhibiting our ability to have a functional family in our home? And, go to a depression or anxiety recovery program locally. Do the things that are necessary so that the mental health of the parents can be of such that they can institute a functional family. And dysfunctional families can turn into functional families within a matter of a few days to weeks. But we have to be intentional on working on it, and it is well worth the effort from all the research I've presented here today.
What's EQ got to do with happy families?
Emotional intelligence does have a vital role to play in happy families. Emotional intelligence is not only knowing our emotions, but also the emotions of others. So we need to understand when our kids are having outbursts, what their thoughts are behind those feelings that are bringing it about. And actually, instead of us responding by escalating our own lack of frustration on the situation, to be able to manage our own emotions when our kids are not managing theirs. That's another sign of a dysfunctional family, by the way. When the kids quit managing their emotions, the parents also quit managing theirs. That's a setup for disaster. And so we want to still have the parents in charge of their emotions, and also to be able to properly read our kids correctly. This is one of the issues that have been talked about in regards to when we have adopted parents, for instance. Studies have shown that adopted parents don't do quite as well as biological parents. And it's not because they're not as involved, but here's the problem. Because they don't have the same genetics, they're not able to as accurately mind read. Because they're thinking, if I had that expression on my face, this is what I would be thinking. But when we have a different genetic makeup, we actually might be reading them wrong. And so biological parents are much more able to accurately mind read their children. In fact, children are often wondered, how did you know that was what I was thinking? They'll even deny it. I was not thinking that. And underneath it, they're saying, boy, Dad knows exactly what I'm thinking. And so that means we have to be a little more patient. We have to actually ask some questions. What are you thinking? Why was it that you did this? And what's going on in your head? And help them to be able to soften their irrational thoughts, because when we have irrational thoughts, bad emotions come about. When we have rational thoughts, it's much more balanced. And so we can help our own kids recognize the connection between thoughts and emotions. And when we're emotionally intelligent, we're set up to produce and guide the emotional intelligence of our children to be enhanced.
Dr. Nedley, do you have a special message to families today?
The message for families today is to let's, with pride and joy, embrace our families. We start out in this world with families. And when we leave this world, who's going to be there is family. And in between is also very important. Let's love and embrace our spouses. Let's support them. Let's love and embrace our children. Let's not subject or give up our role of authority, loving authority over our children. There's lots of pressures for us to go a different way, but I can tell you it is well worth having and embracing that loving family unit that will actually help us even spiritually as well. And by the way, the spiritual part also helps the loving families. And so, being part of a church family can help us in regards to growing our own families, getting this overall meaning and purpose of our families achieving great good in this world, not just for their own success, but helping other families, helping others in need, teaching our children to do those types of things. When we live a selfless life as parents, prioritizing our kids, we will not be disappointed.
Dr. Nedley, thank you for joining us on our program today and for sharing such valuable information with us.
It's been great being here, Gary. Thanks so much for having me.
Sometimes we feel overwhelmed and inadequate with our role as a parent. Sometimes we are concerned that we haven't quite been the ideal parent we'd like to be for our children. In fact, the Bible is full of stories of people who have been less than perfect. They made mistakes and their families suffered. And yet, when they gave their inadequacies and insecurities to God, He found ways to mend their brokenness. There's a story in the Bible book of 1 Kings chapter 18 about how God brought the children of Israel back to being connected with Him. God asked His loyal friend Elijah to call a gathering and provide a space for them to reconnect with Him again. Throughout the events of the day, the people were led to realize the futility of putting worthless things in the place of God. They came to realize that God needed to be at the center of their lives. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come near to me." So all the people came near to him on a mountain called Carmel, and he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down. Notice in the story that when the people gathered around the altar to pray to God, it automatically brought them closer to each other. That's what connecting with God does. It helps us repair damaged relationships so that we can live in harmony. In an online forum designed for parents to connect and share, families were asked to post their biggest parenting challenges. One mum shared these sentiments. "I basically feel like I'm just winging it every day. Some days I get it right, some days I get it wrong. So many days I just don't even get it at all." Perhaps that's how you feel. But if you would like support and encouragement to be the best parent you can, to raise children to become well-adjusted, caring and independent adults, then I'd like to recommend the free gift we have for all our incredible journey viewers today. It's a booklet called Raising Happy Families in a Modern World. This booklet is our gift to you and is absolutely free. I guarantee there are no costs or obligations whatsoever. So make the most of this wonderful opportunity to receive the gift we have for you today.
Phone or text us at 0436 333 555 in Australia or 020 422 2042 in New Zealand, or visit our website tij.tv to request today's free offer, and we'll send it to you totally free of charge and with no obligation. Write to us at GPO Box 274, Sydney, New South Wales 2001, Australia, or PO Box 76673, Manukau, Auckland 2241, New Zealand. Don't delay. Call or text us now.
If you've enjoyed today's journey into the world of modern families and our reflections on the secrets of a happy family and how God cares for us, then be sure to join us again next week when we will share another of life's journeys together. But now I'd like to invite you to join me as we pray and ask for a special blessing on our families that is found in the Bible book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.